Hello everybody, I'm SJM. Welcome back to some Vault Hunters. Jumping back into this mod pack again now that it's into the 0.9 release, which according to Iskall is going to be the no more functional changes to the way the systems work in the game. So I thought now would be a good time to get back in, see how things have progressed, and to go over some early game tips and tricks for everybody. So we are done. We have done a little bit of Minecrafting. As you can see here, we've got our lovely starter house here. Gone through the initial pages of the quest book, which I threw the actual quest book itself away, but I did keep the manual, the Patchouli book, because this one is just good for getting you like all the information that the quest book is good and guiding you a little bit of the ways, but if you want a little bit more in-depth stuff, you can find it in this book here. But you don't actually need the quest book to get into it, because if you just push the hotkey for the vault system itself, which is H, you can just go to the quest page there, or you can keybind it in your options. So I have it set up on a hotkey where I can just push the key and go straight into it there. So I've gotten the first few out of the way here just up until our first vault, and just wanted to go over just a little bit of awkwardness at this point here, because I did a test playthrough up until about level 12 or so, and just noticed one thing, especially in this section here. So you're asked to go into a vault, you get a little reward, and then the next one is making a bounty table, and then the tool station to get your first vault tools. The awkwardness here is that this quest asks you to complete a bounty. Now, obviously, we can't make either of these stations without going into the vault because they require vault items. So that's, obvious in itself, but the awkwardness comes that you won't be able to have a vault tool until your third vault, technically speaking. So just to note that there. Of course, you're going to have the typical variants in some of the quests with collecting the chromatic iron, whether you find that easily, not vault stone. And then, to make your altar and your better enchanter, you're going to need 7 diamonds, 6 diamonds. You need 2 for the better enchanter because you need to make an enchanting table. You need 1 for the vault altar, and you also need 3 to make a pickaxe so you can get the obsidian. Now, you could probably get around the pickaxe and the obsidian, or with finding obsidian in some ocean treasure out there. Unfortunately, I did not, and I looked. Trust me, I looked for it. So I tried to cheat my way there, but it was never quite got there, but eventually had to just go and do it the old-fashioned way to get the enchanter. This is just a wonderful thing. We've got our diamond axe. We've got fortune 3 and efficiency 5 without the use of any villagers, and much cheaper than any villager system would be able to do. Anyways, right? Just to note, one thing I did in my first playthrough was you can put Unbreaking on your healing vial, but I don't think it works. If it procs, it doesn't proc very often at all. I thought it was procking all the time because I had it in my head that it healed 4 hit points and had 4 charges, but it actually has 6 charges. Then, after I realized that it had 6 charges, I only did like a couple more vaults after that, and then didn't think it was the Unbreaking was procking at all on that. So not quite sure if it works there, but if you want to test it for yourself, it only costs you the 5 emeralds to really dig into it and check it out there for yourself. Great in this version now, we get a shulker box before we're going into the first vaults, because that essentially doubles all of the storage that we get for the first vaults, rather than going in there and really having to be picky with all of the stuff that you come out of it. Another thing that I like to do before I head into a vault is to start my next one, so that I know maybe there's something that shows up here that you might need to find from the vault, or that you might come across easily in the vault. Like say one of the azalea bushes comes up here and you actually find yourself in the azalea type vault, so that that becomes easy and you don't have to go searching for a lush cave to be able to get that, or the spore blossoms, so on and so forth. I managed to do a marker there. Good, pushing my pause button because I had to think about what I was talking about next here. Just to go over, so I've got that unspent skill point from going through the early quests, and I think I'm going to save that one, because in your first vault you should be able to get up to level 3 pretty easily, which will give you 4 skill points total, which will enable us to get this first level of speed. I think speed is the most important thing to have inside the early vaults, because although the vaults themselves aren't massive, but they are quite large. So you spend a lot of time moving from room to room. Between points of interest themselves in each room isn't so bad, but going between each room is kind of long. And then when you have that final run out to get back out of the vault, especially in the early ones, which is only the monolith vaults, and you have to use the exit, you definitely want that speed just to increase your overall efficiency there. I think the second most important one, and I only queued into this watching Iskal's starter series, which you should definitely go and check out if you want more information about the current iteration, is strength. Each point of strength increases your base damage by 3, and then if we just look at our iron sword here, it's doing 6 attack damage. So if I took that one that I have now and put it into strength, I'd get a 50% increase in my base damage, which would be actually meaningful. And then if you sink in 4 points into that, you're getting quite a bit of damage, which only helps out with some of the other skills. If you happen to take things like Nova or other skills that have their damage based on how much damage you do. Right? So aside from the talents for speed and strength, the other notable skills for the early game: Vein Miner, just when you come across the ore POIs, you can dig through all of that vault stone a little bit quicker. The dash, of course, so that you can move around a little bit faster, jump over obstacles, get out of trouble in some places. All that stuff. The guidebook does advise to go into heal, but actually this new skill called Totem Rejuvenation is technically better. The way you'd use this is you'd go into a point of interest, you drop down the totem, and then you do some fighting. You get a little bit of healing in while you're doing the fighting, but if you took some damage, happen to take some incidental damage while you're doing that fighting around the point of interest, you got the time while it's down, so the extra 40 seconds or whatever that it actually lasts, to giving you that 0.4 tick heal, 0.4 per, I don't know if that's per tick or per second, whatever it works out to, but while you're looting the point of interest, it'll heal you back up there. So I think that works a little bit better than the heal itself, but I haven't personally tested it, but that's just my theory on that new skill there. Obviously, Iskal used the javelin skill. You can do that if you want something ranged. I prefer melee combat myself, so I'm that one. I used to be a huge Stonefall fan, but it now doesn't reduce 100% of the damage until you sink some points into it, so I think I'm just going to have to learn how to clutch with the water bucket a little bit better. And then as you're going up, as you increase the levels, once you get to level 5 and then eventually level 10, you'll have expertise points to spend. Among these, I think the best early game ones are Fortunate, and then maybe the first point in Bounty Hunter here, because if once you complete a bounty, you have to wait 2 hours to get a new one to replace it. And a lot of the times on that bounty table, you get a couple of bad bounties to do, like bad either the reward isn't very good, or that the bounty itself is actually a little bit difficult, or is definitely going to take multiple vaults to complete. Just a note with the when we do start getting into bounties, the most valuable rewards in the first early part of the game is the chromatic steel. So you want to be looking for bounty rewards that give you chromatic steel, so that you can get some of your other stations up, like your not the enchanter, but not the tool station, but the recycler comes a little bit later. But there's a couple of other stations that you want that steel for, and then also maybe there's a couple of recipes that you need it for as well, and that gets really intensive on your carbon, which doesn't come very fast at the beginning of the game. So that and the magic silk, I think, are the two most important vault related resources that you want to focus on, or hope that you get in bulk, because the silk is used in the making of the pouches, which almost always should be your first research that you do. The other research that I would consider would be Vault Compass, if you're that kind of a person that likes to wander around the vault and not really do a specific pattern every time. I now have a specific pattern that I do all the time, which keeps, so that I know where I am in the vault and don't need it so much. But that's generally one of my top 3 things to get, aside from the pouches, which helps out with the looting and your efficiency in the vaults themselves. And then storage, one of the storage options there. So drawers, colossal chest, and possibly simple storage as your solutions for handling all of the tons and tons of stuff that you're going to end up getting out of the vaults there. So without further ado, that's going to be it for the my early game thoughts in this current iteration. I think, obviously they've said none of the base systems are going to be changing, just maybe some of the numbers associated on those systems could change moving forward. So let's see if I've got enough here. The other thing I kind of like to have going into my first vault, because it doesn't really cost a whole lot, is a sack. Because you got your 27 extra slots with your shulker box, but we can actually even get 9 more with the sack. And then just a note there, you can pick up things in your inventory with the sack, but you actually have to put it down on the ground and break it first before you're able to do something like that. So just something to note there. Anyways, as I said, that's about it for this. I'm going to go do some vaults and then probably come back maybe around level 10 if I've got anything different to say. Maybe this playthrough shows me something different that I didn't think of in my initial sort of test world. But other than that, if there's nothing there, probably back around level 20 to speak to you about what happens between level 10 and level 20, because the first 10 levels, nothing too interesting there. You can actually, like I said, you can get away without a strong healing spell because you've got the vial if you're comfortable with the fighting. But you never can always sometimes tell, and stuff goes wrong in the vault. So having those heal, either the totem or the heal spell itself, is a good backup for keeping yourself alive in the vaults. It's not super, it's not all important to not die in the first 20 levels, because you get to keep all of your stuff if you do. You just don't get any of the experience when you get out of it. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed, And I appreciate you all for checking out the video, and we will see you in the next one.